Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week?
In an article written by the Associated Press, we learned that many of America's dinner table meals actually come from a former Southern slave plantation that is now the country's largest maximum security prison. A 2-year investigation found a web connecting major food companies to U.S. prisoners working for literal pennies an hour, or sometimes nothing at all. From Frosted Flakes to Coca-Cola, these prisoners produce goods found in nearly every American kitchen and major food retailers such as Kroger, Target, Aldi, Walmart, and Whole Foods. These prisoners, some coerced to work under threat of parole, denial, or solitary confinement, often lack basic protections, even when facing serious injury or death while working. One man described his experience to the Associated Press, stating, quote, "They'd come, maybe four in the truck, shields over their face, billy clubs, and they beat you right there in the field. They beat you, handcuff you, and beat you again," end quote. A woman told AP that she and many women were sexually harassed by staff, taunted by prison guards who called the women, quote, "the whole squad," end quotes, and the only pay she received was 2 rolls of toilet paper a week, toothpaste, and a few menstrual pads each month. Director of the MacArthur Justice Center, Cliff Johnson, told AP, quote, "There is nothing innovative or interesting about this system of forced labor as punishment for what in so many instances is an issue of poverty or substance abuse," end quote. Though some, like Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey, defended the practice, stating, quotes, "I don't feel like they should get paid. They're paying back their debt to society for violating the law," end quotes. While many people believe the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, the 13th Amendment allows involuntary servitude as punishment for a crime. So, Andre, I wanted to ask you, do you believe this constitutional clause should be revisited?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it goes beyond just this clause being revisited. I think that there needs to be a reevaluation of how the entire justice system operates because capitalism has infiltrated nearly all aspects of society. The justice system is also tainted by it. Industrial prison complexes may want us to believe that the punishment of incarceration and voluntary servitude is how people in prison repay their debt to society, but the truth always boils down to money. Because those who are incarcerated are not protected by the same labor laws as free persons. These major corporations are able to get away with unsafe working conditions, unfair wages, and get their product at a much faster rate with a lot less effort on their ends. And more than that, by creating a system where the payout that these prisoners receive are things that should be considered basic needs, it creates a fear-based motivation that allows these corporations to have a tighter form of control. For example, if a free person works at a job where they aren't making enough money to make, their needs met, they have the option to find a better form of employment. Or if a free person is being mistreated by their employer, they can report them through the proper channels and so on and so forth. However, prisoners are not subject to those same privileges. And because of that, it makes them the perfect people to take advantage of. The scariest part of it all is that many people in life, many everyday citizens, don't see a problem with this because in their minds, they feel that every single prisoner deserves whatever punishment is doled out to them and whatever treatment is doled out to them. Not to mention the fact that our prison systems are designed for containment rather than rehabilitation. When you're just containing a prisoner, the likelihood of their return, if they are released, is very high. In fact, in an article titled Mass Incarceration, The Whole Pie of 2023, written by Wendy Sawyer and Peter Wagner, we learned that, quote, the most recent government study of recidivism, which is defined as the tendency of convicted criminals to reoffend, reported that 82% of people incarcerated in state prison were arrested at some point in the 10 years following their release. But the vast majority of those were arrested within the first 3 years, and more than half within the first year. If that isn't a sign that the system we currently have isn't fucking working, then I don't know what is. But here's the thing, I think that this is all by design. If our prison systems were actually designed to rehabilitate the prisoners that they bring in, that would mean that they would have to not only treat prisoners humanely, but also work to find ways to help those prisoners gain access to resources that will make it less likely for them to offend again. If they did that, this would disrupt the entire free labor force machine that many of these massive corporations rely on. And when we know that these billionaires that are in power won't allow that, they'll hire whatever lobbyists, pay off whatever politician they need in order to keep the system working as it has been, because even though it's not working for the prisoners, it's working wonders for the bottom line of these major corporations. But what do you think, Daquon? I mean, do you think this constitutional clause should be revisited?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, this entire system is a system that needs revisiting, reworking, abolishment, creating something new and different. Because I think the phrase is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of madness, insanity. And that is what we are doing. We are constantly funding and overfunding a system where it's not working. For every 1 to 2 success stories we see about people who went to prison and got their lives together and came out a better person, there are thousands and thousands more of people who have been constantly failed by the prison system, by this prison industrial complex. Because at the end of the day, these prisons are businesses. They need to meet their bottom line and they're going to do it however they want. They don't have any interest in the people who are actually inside of the prison. If they did, they would actually fund rehabilitation and get actual, mental health counselors, have people have different types of training and do things that sets these prisoners up to succeed whenever they do re-enter the rest of society. But that doesn't happen. And it's crazy what goes on in these prisons and in these prison plantations, basically, because we think so often that, oh, slavery so long ago, it's ended. And if there's one thing that I learned being an African American studies major, which like blew my mind, was that slavery never really fully ended. It just changed its shape. It just changed into sharecropping. It just changed into prison labor and mass incarceration and all of these different systems that specifically target African Americans in this country. And one of the things that I think isn't talked about enough is the rights of incarcerated peoples,
Mhm.
because so often we're like, oh, they're murderers, they're robbers, they're this and that, they're criminal scum and they should just go in prison and rot. And regardless of whatever crimes that they did, which we also know so often people get put away from crimes they didn't even commit. These are still human beings. These are people, people who have families, people who have loved ones, people who a lot of times get put away for the smallest things. I found out that there are so many people own that prison plantation who are there for nonviolent offenses. They're there for sending a bad check. You're telling me that it is all right to basically enslave somebody for sending a bad check? That's wild. And so I think that oftentimes we forget about the humanity of these people who are incarcerated
Mhm.
because they just get left out of the wayside so often. And even when they do come back to society, it's harder for them to get jobs. They can't vote in so many places. There's all of these struggles that basically put them back in the system. I mean, if you have a roof over your head, you get 3 square meals a day, even if they're not that good, it's still food, and you get thrown out into the real world where you're homeless, nobody wants to hire you, you can't afford food, you can't afford to shelter, you can't afford to put clothes on your back. Of course, going back is going to look like a better option. It's going to look like your only option. So this entire system needs a rework. We need to make sure that we are focusing on putting in resources that bring up communities because that's where the change lies. When we invest in our communities, when we invest in community centers and community groups and community watching, that's when we see change in communities. That's when we see positive interactions instead of people who don't know nothing about a community coming in, causing trouble, arresting anybody and everybody to meet their quotas so that they can get their check at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that, there's also been this question that's been floating around too about like whether or not businesses should be required to inform consumers when their products have been, produced through prison
Mhm.
labor. And, I have to say, I think that yes, 100%, but I don't think that that type of information would ever be readily available to the public. That's because the sheer volume of how many of the most popular companies in the world that rely on prison slash slave labor would blow the minds of many people, especially in America. As I've already said before, capitalism works best when the majority of people are either unaware of its effects or willfully ignorant to them. If businesses were required to inform their consumers whether the products they are selling them were produced by prison or slave labor, it would force a lot of people to do some deep introspection as to where they draw the line in regards to their moral compass. But I think that what's really interesting here is if we try to theorize is if the knowledge was readily available, right, to the average consumer, would that truly be enough to upset the system enough to create change? Like, I mean, we've seen what happens when the public works together, right, to boycott companies like Starbucks, for instance, by dropping their bottom line by billions in support of Palestine. However, we also saw how easy it was for Starbucks to find inventive ways of recouping some of those losses through their partnership with Stanley Cups and some of the public claiming they were experiencing boycott fatigue. The problem isn't solely the general public not having easily accessible and knowledge of bad business practices and slave labor. It's also the fact that capitalism has individualized and separated us from each other so much so that they've created an environment that's very much so every person for themselves, right? Like the type of thought process, and this type of thought process specifically allows these companies to essentially play a waiting game of sorts. Sure, they may lose profits for a short time, but they know that if they just wait it out or do some clever marketing and rebranding, that eventually their profits could possibly return to normal. I mean, as a society, we still have arguments about whether certain people deserve the same human rights. So even if companies were forced to reveal information about their shady business practices, it would take a massive level of collective consciousness and community that capitalism has been working tirelessly to snuff out in order to force these major corporations and the government to change the way they operate. It may not be impossible, but if the chokehold that capitalism has on our society gets, if it keeps getting tighter, bitch, it will become increasingly more difficult for us to break free from it. But what do you think, Daquon? I mean, what effect do you think businesses being required to inform consumers about their products being produced through like slave labor would have on that?
I think at the moment, probably not much.
Yeah.
Like, just being honest. I think that so often businesses can get away with a lot
Yeah.
by just simply lying. Like,
Daquon.
I mean, let's be
It's
real.
real being the T, yeah.
I mean, there were even instances in the article where the Associated Press asked for comments from businesses about where they're getting this labor from and, you know, basically confronting them. And they were like, no, no, that doesn't happen. We know where we get our products from. We source them holistically and yada 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 and
Bullshit,
basically
bullshit, bullshit.
lying.
Yeah.
Basically lying. Or we see so much hypocrisy of just like governments banning imports from China because of the forced labor conditions that products were and the goods were created under,
Mm,
but yet still you can force incarcerated people to create these goods and sell them and have all of this and then sell it back to China, which is wild, the hypocrisy there. But like you said before, we live in such an individualistic society that it's going to get brushed off. Like, you would think that people would have to reckon their morals, but at the end of the day, I don't know if so many people have morals,
ooh,
or in the sense that, like, a lot of people do have a price. They
yeah,
love
yeah.
their convenience, they love their luxuries, they love being comfortable. And when you make them uncomfortable, when you push them to think harder about things, they're going to push back. And so we've seen this with people talking about boycott fatigue or
Girl.
yada yada. Like, what is that? Is it that hard not to get Starbucks every single day of the week? Like, there are thousands of other options. Or so often they're like, well, there's just so many. Like, you have this brand, you have this brand, there's too much, so I'm not going to do anything. Or you even have people who are like, well, the $3 that I spend here isn't going to do much. So why should I, do all of this work when my individual impact isn't going to be that much? And that is the problem. The fact is, we have power when we come together. When we work as a group, we get leverage, and that's how we make change. If we continue to think of ourselves solely as individuals, nothing is going to change. So we need to have that collective mindset to be like, yeah, we can come together and we can make things happen. So I think that simply requiring businesses to be transparent about these sort of things isn't going to change much. It's really making sure that there are accountability measures that are going on, because
Mhm.
they can simply say, oh yeah, we did a little bit, or we've changed, we've sourced these things from this thing. Or they'll be like, we're going to donate 20% of whatever we get from this day to this day to charity, and then we're going to do good, we're going to make change,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we want you to donate money to us so we can donate money to them. We'll match it, even though, like, girl, they already got the money, they don't need our money. Like, what? So it's just so much that, like, I wish would happen from transparency alone, but transparency isn't going to change companies without accountability.
As surprising as it may seem, for many people, a simple two-letter word proves to be the most difficult to say: no. According to an article written by the Griot, saying no proves to be a daunting task for many adults. The article cites a behavioral study that found that, quote, 77% of respondents had accepted an invitation to a social activity that they did not want to attend because they were concerned about the negative ramifications that would have emerged had they declined, end quote. A similar study found that more than half of Americans find it difficult to say no. The article notes that not saying no can lead to things such as elevated stress and anxiety, emotional energy drainage, and self esteem issues. The article urges readers to, quote, by saying no, you are declining someone's request for your time, energy, or resources. But more importantly, you're saying yes to yourself and your mental health. Though it may feel uncomfortable in that moment, the repercussions of saying yes by default are far worse, end quote. So, Daquon, I want to ask you, has there ever been a situation when you said yes when you really should have said no?
Girl, plenty. Plenty. Because me saying yes to everything is how I ended up one semester having 18 credit hours, being on 5 exec boards, having 2 jobs and an internship. Like, girl, I was struggling so much because I'm somebody that just like, well, the work got to get done. So I'm gonna say yes and do the work. I'm gonna put in that work. But it really was something that I had to learn how to say no because there were so many instances where I said yes. It seems much easier to say yes, especially when you're somebody like me and is constantly in my head about so many different things of like, oh, well, like if I don't say yes, am I going to get this opportunity again? Am I going to be able to get these skills that I would learn? Am I going to be able to have a deeper relationship with this person if I say no to their request? Would they think less of me? Yada, yada, yada. When in reality, it don't matter. It don't matter. Like I could say no to something and it be perfectly fine. And I think that it doesn't just extend for like kind of tasks, but also events. I'm somebody that is very introverted. I love to be in my own home, in my own space, by myself, protecting my peace, doing what makes me happy, maybe being creative, maybe writing, maybe doing makeup, maybe just like something where I can just focus on me. That's how I recharge. And I remember, especially early on in college, I had a very hard time saying no to certain things because I didn't wanna be that friend that just, like, always says no to going out and hanging out because then it's like, "Oh, well, like, if I always say no, then I'm not gonna get invited anymore," or I'll not be able to make friends or have these connections with people, or it's college, it's my freshman year, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be having fun and being stupid. And in reality, so many of those times I wasn't having fun. I was being stupid, but I wasn't having fun. And so it really reminded me just like sometimes saying no is okay. It's okay because you need that time to go back to your dorm room and rest and recover. You should be studying for that exam instead of going out and partying, and then you get your exam back and you're like, well, I did the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing. And so it just was a challenge for me for so long to learn how to say no.
No, I agree. I think it, you know, I think we all have had some trouble with saying no at some point or
Mhm.
another in our lives. For me, it's definitely been more so in work situations, specifically with management. Like, I work in a home improvement store that shall remain nameless because I assume that check to keep cashing and clearing.
Get that
But
money, get that
I need to
coin.
get that coin.
The check needs to clear.
But there are some situations where managers and supervisors will try to encourage their team into taking on more responsibilities because, in their words, it'll look good on your resume. Or my favorite line, it'll make your job so much easier if you learned X, Y, and Z. But oftentimes, this is just a clearly, it's a cleverly veiled way for them to get more labor out of their workers while still paying them at the same rate. For example, at this nameless hardware store, they love to encourage their staff to learn how to operate equipment like forklifts and such. However, there is no additional pay for those certifications. Once you learn it, not only are you taking on the liabilities that come with operating that machinery, but you are also expected to be the one called on whenever anyone, even outside of your own department, needs that machine used. Again, with no additional pay. This is just one of the many examples, but what I've learned is that in big business, especially in retail, those phrases they use to get you to do more is not them looking out for your best interests, but for the best interests of the company. Thankfully, I caught on, very early on in this job world that whenever I learned how to do certain things outside the scope of my job, those additional responsibilities soon became expected of me moving forward, even though I was not being paid to do them. However, I will say that it's not easy to tell these managers and supervisors that you're not interested in taking on more responsibilities because they are very clever in their way that they try to, quote unquote, encourage you to do that, right? But Daquon, I wanted to ask you, like, do you still find it difficult to say no?
I think I've gotten much better. There are times I have these eras where no is my favorite word. I love to say no. Do you want to do this? No.
Not at
Do you want
all.
to go here? No, not at all. I really don't.
That's why I laugh and you said it like it hasn't been as difficult.
It hasn't been as difficult, but there are those moments. Like I said before, I'm somebody that gets in my head a lot. So when I have those moments, sometimes it can be a lot harder to say no. But I've also learned so much about myself and my capacity to learn how to say no in different ways that doesn't feel as bad as a no. Like, it's still hard to say no in a lot of like career and job
Yeah.
areas of your life because it's like, well, if I say no to my boss, like, are they going to fire me or give me less work, maybe, cut my hours or something like that, retaliate or whatever? Or am I missing an opportunity to climb up the ladder? But in reality, I've learned that so many of those times you can say no and nothing really happens. Or if you can't say no, if it's still difficult for you could be like, well, here's what I have on my plate right now. Would you want to help me reprioritize my list of tasks in order to fit that into it? And then a lot of times they are going to look at what you have to do and be like, no, I'll just give this to somebody else because that's much easier for them. I've actually been lucky to have really good managers in my
Mm,
adult working world of who really do listen to me and listen to my, capacity level, and that's definitely helped. Who you're saying no to helps you so much, even in social things. Like, I know if Andre asked me to do something, and they're like, let's hang out, let's kiki, whatever, and I'm not feeling it, I can say no, I don't have the capacity, and she'll completely understand. It's one of those things where I never have to get in my head about them because I know them so much. And so it gets easier the more you know a person. And even in
Mhm.
those instances where I don't know somebody that well, I've just taught myself I can only be the best me when I'm at my best condition. If I don't want to do something, I should just say no because it's going to be a lot worse and I'm going to come across a lot worse if I'm miserable and I don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that saying no is not always easy, especially in work situations. For instance, building on the example I gave earlier with taking on more responsibilities at work. Sure, you don't necessarily have to take on those duties, but if you have any plans of trying to move up within that company, when or if a position opens up, you may go to the bottom of the pile in terms of the contenders up for that position. It's a really fucked up system when you really think about it, because on the one hand, yes, taking on more responsibilities sometimes does make your resume for a company look a little better and can increase your chances of a promotion. However, upward mobility in a company is not as readily available as it once was due to, and you guessed it, capitalism. Companies are looking for any way they can to cut costs. And one of the ways that they do that is by either erasing positions entirely or consolidating positions to a lower or mid pay range. So, what ends up happening more often than not is it is used to we're used to, like, with staff members who do end up taking on more responsibilities to pad their resumes and end up taking advantage of, because companies save more money by having someone do the work of two or three different people rather than hiring someone else to help or giving that employee a raise or a promotion for the new workload. These companies will work that particular employee until that employee either burns out or quits, and then they'll hire more people to take on their role at a lower rate, or worse, they'll hire someone else to do the same job you were doing but at a higher rate than they were paying you. It's a vicious cycle that's getting more cutthroat now because companies are trying to save more and more, and the people who have those higher up positions are staying longer because there isn't anywhere to elevate in the company, which makes the entire system freeze to a standstill. However, what I have discovered is that knowing when to say no is really kind of like Daquon was trying to say, like a balancing act, right? Like, when we're talking about work, there's nothing wrong with taking on more duties and responsibilities if you are looking to elevate or pad your resume, but you have to be mindful of when you're taking on too much and when these companies are taking advantage of your ambition. If you see that there is nowhere for you to grow in that company or store, maybe stick to your own responsibilities and start looking into working for another company where the promotional opportunities are more plentiful. At the end of the day, these companies don't give a rat's ass about your well-being. If you die today or tomorrow, they'll replace you with a quickness and not even bat an eye about it. You have to pay attention to your mental health cues as well as watching how things operate around you and saying yes or no in the workplace. And into day-to-day life, it's kind of the same. Like, it may be hard to say no because you may be a people pleaser, like myself, and like Daquan was trying to say too. Like, but you have to remember, no is just as necessary as yes. And sometimes the word no is the only thing that will help you protect your peace.
I think it's also sometimes the word no is I'm trying to find the right way
Be
to say.
nice. Let me stop. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? I'm
I
finding
mean,
it.
there are plenty of contexts where no means no. We should respect that.
Obviously. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
outside of those contexts, no can mean not right now. And I think that that's
Yes.
something that we forget sometimes of just like when we're, telling a friend, "Oh, do you want to hang out?" No. It's not me being like, "I don't ever want to hang out with you." It's just I don't really want to right now. And so
Mhm.
if you have to spin it like that of, "Oh, I'm not really feeling it tonight. I don't know," or maybe not right now, but then give an option, be like, I can't do tonight, but like, can we meet up next week?
Yeah.
That also helps sometimes in saying no, if just like giving a no, but also saying, I still care about you and I still want to hang out with you. So here's some other option.
I really like how you said that. I think that that's something that people don't always understand too, is that no is a full sentence, yes.
Hmm.
But especially with situations where you're like kind of debating whether or not you have the time or patience or the energy for something, it can be like you said, no, I can't today. I don't have the energy for it today, but next week I'll be free, or but this day. And I think that sometimes we get afraid of that because, like you said, we're afraid of what people might think of us or how people might feel about us saying this and the fourth. But at the end of the day, if a person can't, hmm, at the end of the day, if a person can't handle you saying no to something, then maybe they shouldn't be in your life.
That part. A white TikTok father received backlash after pleading with Black TikTok to help him figure out what to do with his Black adopted daughter's hair. In a now deleted video, the TikToker said, quotes, "We have adopted a Black baby. Her name is Zoe, and I don't know what to do for her hair. Please, any Black parents or anyone who knows what to do with Black children's hair, please help me in the comments," end quotes. According to an article written on NBC News, quotes, along with sprinklings of advice about caring for Zoe's hair, most of the social media users who responded accused him and his husband of adopting a Black child solely for social media content and asked pointed questions in videos of their own. Did they not have Black friends they could talk to? Is Zoe just for show? Why didn't they prepare to raise a Black child? End quotes. The father responded to the criticism by stating, quote, "People said I viewed her as a prop or accessory and not a human being, and that is not the case at all. That's not how I view my daughter at all. I've learned that I need to be very intentional about the community that surrounds us and have people who look like her talk to her." End quotes. So, Andre, I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the situation and was the TikTok video problematic?
Um, Regardless of the damage control he tried to do with that PR statement he released, it was crystal clear in that video that Zoe was being used as a way to elevate his social media platform. There's this thing that I've noticed about some of these white creatives on social media who try to profit off of Black culture. They'll usually go about it one of two ways, right? The first way is rage baiting, specifically Black rage baiting. They'll purposefully antagonize the Black community to run up their engagement, wait until the racist white community rises up to defend and support them for antagonizing Black people, and then completely revamp their brand with an audience that will support them solely to spite the Black community. The second and equally popular way is by co-opting Black culture either through dating Black people, using their friendships with Black people to excuse their Black sense and Blackfishing, or more insidiously, through having Black babies to try and get those white savior brownie points. And that's exactly what this is giving to me. And people will argue that he was asking a question and that this was his way of trying to educate himself. But how he went about it was definitely giving opportunist vibes. Not only was he in the video brushing that newborn baby's head a little too roughly for my taste, but he was doing the very thing that certain white people love to do, which is putting the work of their own personal growth onto the backs of Black people to carry. More than that, this was clearly his shot at trying to use his baby for content because let's keep it 100. It's 2023. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of videos of Black women discussing their hair, how to care for it, manage it, and so forth. There are books upon books of Black hair care strategies written by Black authors, podcasts. Hell, there's probably even free seminars out there that you could register for if you looked for it. So there are absolutely no excuses for him to be getting up on TikTok asking questions that could have been answered with a 5-second Google search. There's also this other thing and this other layer of child influencers that we've discussed in another episode that I think is still relevant in this conversation. I don't know if you remember the story, Daquon, but in an article written on Business Insider by Teresa Chong, we learned that lifestyle blogger Nikki Philippi and her husband were looking to adopt a child from Thailand. However, they stopped the adoption process after they found out that per the Thailand Adoption Agency's policies, if her and her husband were to adopt a child from them, they were prohibited from filming and sharing content with that child in their social media for at least a year. And I feel that that should be a policy that is enforced among all adoption agencies, because the fact that he just adopted this child and is already posting content with her in it feels like a cash grab, and I'm not here for it. Like, and to be completely honest with you, Daquan, I think 1 year is still too short of a time frame. Like, I feel like it should be expanded to at least 3 to 5 years to ensure that those looking to adopt a child are actually doing it because they want to be parents and not because they are trying to create a new revenue stream for their content creation. But Daquan, what do you think?
Child, when I say this entire situation is trash, like, girl, exasperated sigh in blackness, because I don't know what it is, especially nowadays, but so many people are just willfully ignorant and don't want to put in the work. Like, I started to notice this in like the makeup world of like, I could literally make a video, hold the product in my hand, say the product's name, have it in the description, have it in the comments, and somebody will still ask me, what product is it? Where can I get it? It's like, girl, how many times? And I understand that, like, sometimes people learn at different rates and understand things differently, but that's also why I have the visual, the written, the audio,
The
like,
visuals. Oh, wait a minute, Beyonce.
girl, the visuals never coming, but I digress. The point is, even with things like this, people just want to ask a question and have everybody come. And people, what did Kim Kardashian? People don't want to work nowadays. People don't want to put in that work. To quote Kim Kardashian, people just don't want to work. Like, it takes nothing at all to do a Google search. Like, I promise, in the time it took him to film that video, upload it, and get comments, he could have already solved the problem. He could have already went to Google how to take care of a black baby's hair and learned so much. But too often, people just want you to do the work of educating for them. They don't want to educate themselves, even though there is a wealth, a plethora of information out there
Yeah.
telling them exactly what they need to do. Like, girl, all it takes is a simple Google search. We have one of the best research tools in the palm of our hands. We have so much knowledge in our back pockets, and you don't use it. Doesn't make sense to me. And it just screams like, it honestly kind of screams virtue signaling. Like, I could do the work of figuring it out all by myself, but I'm going to get on the internet. I'm going to be like, I'm so clueless. I don't know what to do. I'm struggling here. Can you help me out? It's like, girl, have you tried? Have you attempted? Have you tried to figure something out by yourself? It's like, it's like,
Have you tried at all?
have you tried at all? Have you done anything? It's like when you go to a teacher and you're like, I don't understand it, and you haven't even looked at it. It's like,
Yeah.
take a minute. You know what would be been what would have been a better way of doing this if he was like, I've done the research, some research, I've heard this about this brand, this about this brand, I've heard about
Mhm.
this technique. I'm just want to make sure, I just want to confirm, has anybody had success with it? Yeah, yeah. That
Yes,
would have
yes.
been so much better because it shows that he put in the work.
He put in the
But
time
it's like,
already.
no, he very clearly wanted to make a video to show, "Oh, I have a black daughter. I'm this white man with a black daughter. I'm an ally."
Oh,
It's like, "Girl, get out of here. Get out of here."
no. Yeah, and I honestly, truth be told, like, I mean, even there's this odd the idea, like, is the process of transracial adoption like problematic? And I don't think that transracial adoption itself is wrong, but I do think that there needs to be some extra steps that a person needs to take before deciding to adopt a child that is outside of their race. Now, here's the thing, when you adopt a child, period, it's up to you to ensure that you are prepared for all the responsibilities that come with what that means. You should be creating spaces for that child in your life, securing your finances for the new expenses that the child will bring, as well as doing your research into what it means to raise a child. There may even be some generational curses that you have to learn how to break through therapy and by continuously working to heal the personal traumas you've been through so that you don't pass them on to your child. And those are just a few of the steps you need to look into before taking on the responsibility of raising a child that is part of your cultural and racial background. However, when you're adopting transracially, that's double the work because you have to do all those things I've just listed and so much more, because now you have got to start reading books and articles on the culture your child is from, creating those tangible relationships with people from that cultural community so that your child can relate with other children and people who look like them. And I think the most important part is that you have to constantly work to unlearn the prejudices that you have subconsciously internalized. That's the reason why this type of adoption specifically is not to be taken lightly. It's a lot of additional work that requires a particular type of person willing to put in that time and effort. And this guy doesn't strike me as the type who has been actively doing that. See, he didn't just adopt a black baby. He adopted a black girl who will eventually grow up to be a black woman. And while he may know what discrimination feels like as a gay man, he has no idea what it will feel like to experience a type of discrimination that little Zoe will inevitably have to grow up facing with the multiple discrimination intersections she exists in. But I hope for Zoe's sake that this response teaches him that being a parent, especially the parent of a black child, is not something to be taken lightly. This is real life. So I'm going to need him to rise up to the occasion because Zoe is not a prop for his amusement or a ticket to TikTok fame. She's a little human being that is going to need guidance, protection, and love. But what do you think, Daquon? I mean, do you think that transracial adoption is problematic?
I don't think the instance of it, the kind of process itself of I don't think the act itself is problematic. I think that there are problematic people who do the act, and there's a lot of problems that can arise should you not be prepared correctly. I was reading this one study that found that a lot of transracial adoptees have a lot of trauma because of not being connected to their community or not understanding so many different facets of their identity, and that those who do have community, even though they might have a parent of a different race than them, those who still have people in their lives who own that identity, or those who parents still talk to them about things like race, even when it makes them uncomfortable, have so much better life outcomes and do so much better. So it really comes down to what one person said in the comments of like, why didn't you prepare to have a black baby? Like, it's the question everybody should be asking. And in fact, I think it should be formalized in the process. Like, when somebody is trying to adopt a black baby or an Indian baby or a uh, native indigenous baby or a baby of any race or color outside of their own, you should ask about, like, okay, what do you know about this community? Do you have anybody in your life who's a part of that community? Do you live somewhere and know where you can find resources? It's something that is so important to a baby growing up, just being able to see themselves and recognize themselves and have
Yeah.
these strong connections and ties to their personal identity, that it needs to be something that is talked about very early on in the process, because there are going to be those conversations. There are going to be a time when Zoe experiences discrimination, and if she comes to her father's being like, this happened to me at school or at work or yada yada yada, somebody said this, and they're not prepared to have that conversation, or they don't know anybody to have that conversation with her, it's going to be very hard for her. So I think that while the act itself isn't problematic, there are so many problems in it that people need to be prepared for.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, the table is always hot with current events and social issues, but sometimes the heat can get a little intense. Let's turn the temp down, take a breather, and get into this week's topic cool down. Andre, what do you have for us this week?
So I want to ask you, Daquan, what is your personal motto or mottos that you live by and why?
I think one of my personal mottos is something that my supervisor told me a lot, told our entire staff a lot when we were an RA. And I think plenty of people have heard this before, but a closed mouth don't get fed. It is something that, like, really changed me thinking about it a lot, because I am somebody that's very independent, and I take pride in that. Like, I'm somebody that, like, if I need to do something, I can do it on my own, get it done, yada yada yada. Like, if you need something done, you can ask me, I'll go do it. And I don't often need help. And I also think that this is something that came from, former gifted kid syndrome or whatever. But like, I was that
Former.
student who got things pretty
Former.
quickly.
What do you mean
Former,
former? Bitch,
always.
you still are.
I am. But I was that student that, like, got things pretty quickly. You tell me something once, I understood it. I can do the math, I can do the reading, I can do the social studies science, I can do well on tests. I was a really good test taker. It was just
Hmm.
something that came easy to me. Just like a lot of different subjects came easy to me. And so I was in a lot of situations where, teachers would be like, "Oh, well, like, Daquan, they got it. They know it. I don't need to, like, worry about them or focus on them. I'm going to spend my time with all of these other students." And
Mm.
so it kind of created a situation where even the times when I did need help or I didn't get it right away, the teachers were so focused on everybody else and just assumed that I would get it, like, quickly like that. And so it kind of reinforced, like, oh, if I want it done, I need to get it done by myself. Like, I
Yeah.
just need to put my head down, grit, determination, all that stuff.
Grinding. Yeah, the grind. Yeah.
Grinding
Hmm.
culture, oh my gosh. Or I was always somebody that, like, I don't like coming to people with problems. I like coming to people with solutions. I like
Mm.
to be like, okay, this is the problem that I'm having. Here's how I'm thinking about how I solve the problem. What do you think?
Hmm.
Versus I don't know what to do. Like, I don't like being in that vulnerable of a situation. It's something that I've had to learn how to do. But really, there are so many instances where you need to ask. You simply need to ask because it won't, like, if you need the help, nobody's going to read your mind. Nobody's going to be like, oh, this person, I think they need help. Let me go help them. You need to ask for it, but you also need to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
If you aren't being treated fairly, say it. Say you're not and advocate what you want. I remember like there was a time when girl senior year, there was a moment where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to graduate on time because there were just like so many different things with credits, and there were all of
Mm.
these changes that were made because of COVID that was made for one semester, that first semester when COVID first hit, but didn't apply for any other semester, even though we were still in
Mm.
COVID and still in a pandemic. And I would never have known it if it wasn't just like I had to look in an attached document to an email and some fine print and yada yada. Like I had to do all of that work just to figure it out. And they told me, like, it was in the middle of March. So we were in the middle of midterms. The semester was halfway over, and they're like, yeah, so you're taking too many classes pass fail for credits. Like, you need to take some of these for graded. And I'm like, girl, I've been coasting for half of semester, just trying to do the bare minimum pass, credit for the get the credit grade for the credit itself, not even for like a graduation requirement. Just like I need to have a certain amount of credits in order to graduate. So you're telling me I've been coasting this entire time and you wait until now to tell me like a little week before the week before the deadline to change from pass fail to graded or vice versa. And so I went to them. It's like, girl, what is this? Like
Girl, what is this?
we're still in a pandemic. The whole like, yeah, y'all had some trainings to teach professors how to use Zoom, but like the education is not the same. The learning is not the same. So I don't understand why these policies are not the same that you emailed and had bold letters about like this is what we're doing for this semester, and it was assumed by so many people that that was going to continue for however long the pandemic lasted. But no, they wanted to like basically hide things and try to trick you. And it's like, girl, I already applied for graduation. Y'all couldn't have told me then. Y'all couldn't have told me at the beginning of the semester, being like, hey, girl, like,
Hey, girly.
you're reaching your limit on pass fail classes. Like, take these for, because that would have been so much. So I literally went to them. And at first they were like, well, we can't really do anything because of accreditation. And I'm like, okay, but you did this before. So what's different now? What's different between the first semester of the pandemic and now, the third semester of the
Daquon
pandemic?
said, I'm leaving here with something. I'm
I'm
leaving here with
leaving here with
something.
something. Like I advocated for myself. I wasn't rude or
Yeah, I know
nasty
what
or
I got you.
anything
I
with
know,
it,
yeah.
but I was like,
You
I
know about to play in
don't
my face.
feel
Yeah.
super supported right now. I don't feel like I was set up for success.
Yeah.
And like I had a conversation with like probably like a dean or something like that, and they were able to work something out, and it was a situation where I could have easily just like been like, well, like I just
It is what it
gotta put my
is.
head
Yeah.
down, grind, and get it done. But no, like I asked for help and people helped me. And so it's like small things of just like sometimes you never know until you ask. So just ask.
Yeah, I think that's a really good motto to live by. I think I have two personal mottos that I live by that I have tattooed on my inner forearms. The first is a quote from Maya Angelou that reads, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And there have been times where I have let my own ideas of a person's potential shape how I view them in my life. Instead of accepting them as they are in my head, I excused some of their behaviors because I just knew that they would one day become the person that I hoped they would be. But I quickly realized time and time again that they never did. That's when I had to understand that people will only change if they choose to change. They can't change for me or for someone else. They have to want to change for themselves. They have to want to better themselves. I had to start accepting people for who they are and not who I envisioned they could be. So when someone tells me who they are, I believe them and try my best to take their actions and words at face value instead of fabricating a rose tinted version of them in my head. And the second motto that I live by is a quote from the movie Steel Magnolias. Now, I've only ever watched the movie the one time. I wasn't even intending to watch it the first time. It just happened to be on TV and it caught my attention. And one of the key plot points in the film is that this character, Shelby, who suffers from type 1 diabetes, wants to be a mother, but her doctor advises against it due to her health condition. Now, she ends up getting pregnant anyway, and her mother is not happy about it because she knows this pregnancy would risk her daughter's life. But Shelby is dead set on having that baby. And when her mother asks her why she would take such a risk with her life, knowing how dangerous it would be, Shelby says to her, quote, "I'd rather have 30 minutes of wonderful than a lifetime of nothing special." And those words hit me straight in my heart and stuck with me after all these years, even if I wasn't a fan of the film. It stuck with me because oftentimes we get stagnant in our lives, doing the same old thing every day: go to work, pay bills, eat, sleep, rinse, repeat. And this quote reminds me every day just how short life is and how at any moment my life, at any moment it could all be over. And if it did end, will I be able to look back on my life and be proud of how I lived it? That quote forces me to step out of my comfort zone, jump into new, fun situations that would allow me to enjoy my life in any way I can. I mean, even if I'm not able to live the dream that I've envisioned for myself in my life, I still want to try my best to enjoy the life I have for what it is. Because as far as we know, this is the only life we get. I'm getting older every day, and I don't want to be I don't want to just be alive. I want to truly live, so that quote really keeps me in check whenever things get too stagnant. It forces me to remember that even if it's just 30 minutes of fun, you never know if that will be your last chance to have fun. What do you think about those, Daquon?
I mean, it's really true because you are getting older every day. You're getting close to
God,
30.
I can't stand this bitch. Daquon is 1 year younger than me.
You're not even a year, a few months.
Daquan's like, I'm not quite at,
I'm not quite old yet.
I'm still in my prime childbearing years. You not
right.
so much.
But you are. But we all just like.
You shady bitch. I can't stand
Listen, sometimes I'm too shady for my own, but I think that it really does resonate. Just like life is limited. We only have so much time in this life, so why not spend it on things that you love, doing what you love, being around people that you love, rather than being complacent and miserable and just like in the same place. It rings true. Also, when you said your tattoo, I thought you were going to start talking about Avatar. I was like, let's get into it. But
No,
I love the Maya Angelou quote because it's so true. Like people will show you exactly who they are, and you can be an optimist. You can try to see the best in everybody, but there comes a time when you just have to be like, this is who they are. I don't want this type of person in my life, so I'm just gonna let them go. And I think that's also something that I've been talking to myself a lot about, is just letting go, letting be. I'm somebody that like stresses about a lot. Like I said, three times already. I get in my head a lot. And so, sometimes I just, in the words of Latrice Royale, good God, get a grip, girl. Like the five holy G's. Like, I just need to tell myself, get it together, let it go, let it be. You don't need to stress about anything. What's done is done.
Yeah.
You can't change it. So why spend so much energy focusing on something you can't change rather than taking that energy and putting it into something you can change?
Yeah, like I think there was another quote I'm about to tell you about too. It's from the Swoop series, but it kind of echoes what you're saying there, where it's like, if you can change things, change them, but don't spend your time worrying on things you can't change.
Hmm.
Because you'll go crazy trying to. You know.
Right.
Now, so many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for a change. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. In an article on fortmoss.org, we learned that more than 300 years ago, courageous Africans escaped from enslavement in British colonies. They fled southward on foot to Spanish St. Augustine, crossing swamps and dense tropical forests. Along the way, they sought assistance from the natives, thus creating the first underground railroad. Not all survived. Those who reached St. Augustine were granted asylum by the Spanish government. It was a unique offer: freedom in exchange for conversion to Catholicism, and for men, a term of military service. The first freedom seekers arrived in 1687. This group included 8 men, 2 women, and a 3-year-old nursing child. By 1738, more than 100 freedom seekers had achieved asylum. In that year, a fortified town named Gracia Real de Santa Teresa de Mose was constructed just 2 miles away from St. Augustine and is considered to be the first ever free Black settlement in the U.S. It was abandoned following the 7 Years' War in 1763. However, in 1994, it was designated as a National Historic Landmark.
Period. I think black towns and black settlements is such an interesting thing to study. It's like you can learn so much about black culture through looking up and understanding so many different black settlements and towns and everything. It's quite fascinating. In an article on blackpast.org, we learned that Granville T. Woods was a prominent inventor and electrical engineer who developed inventions that were awarded 27 patents by the U.S. Patent Office between 1884 and 1903. Woods was born on April 23rd, 1856, in Columbus, Ohio. He attended school until he was 10 years old, and then, as was typical of the era, he left school to start work. Employed in a mechanic shop, he developed a fascination with railroad equipment. Woods, an avid reader and astute learner, began to focus all his spare time and attention to mastering electrical engineering. At the age of 20, he enrolled in a technical college and trained for 2 years in electrical and mechanical engineering. After graduation, with no prominent job prospects in Ohio, he worked as an engineer on a British steamer, which allowed him to travel the globe. Woods eventually settled in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he formed the Woods Electric Company. Although his first patent came in 1884, by 1887, Woods developed the most important of his inventions, the synchronous multiplex railway telegraph, which allowed communications between moving trains and train depots. 1 year later, he developed a system for overhead electric conducting, which helped power locomotives. In 1889, he filed his first patent for an improved steam boiler furnace. Granville T. Woods died in Cincinnati in 1910 at the age of 54.
Baby, Black inventors never cease to amaze me.
Period. I
Never
mean,
cease to amaze me.
Being able to communicate across trains?
I
Where
just
will
love
we
to
be
hear it.
without that?
Right. I just love to hear that. Like, whenever we hear like another black and like, it's just it's so. And I'm so another part of it's kind of a little side tangent, but like that's why I'm so happy that we introduced this segment to the show because like it's
Mhm.
so. This is a lot of information that I never learned in school about
Right.
just how much black culture has contributed to American society and the fact that we have had to do our own research to find that out on our own and weren't given that, because growing up in school, all of our history books, white people did everything. And we came into slaves. That was when we came in. Triangle trade slave system. That's when we came into the history books. But white people, they invented everything apparently in the history books. But of course, because history books are written by the winners. But it's
Mhm.
it's wild when you really sit down and you're able to take that moment to really look at just how much we do and just how much not just black people, but how much minorities in general, specifically, in American society, black culture has, you know, created America.
Right.
It's into what it is today. You know what I'm saying? It's what helped it evolve into what it is today. So all of the black inventors, all of the POC people out there who have contributed to American society and and contributed to our society in general, it's just we just love to see it. We love to
Right.
see it.
That's why we bring it every single week. Cause, girl, most people only get a little something something for Black History Month,
Mm-hmm.
if that.
If that, yeah. Now, as always, thank you all so much for watching and keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram and TikTok at the Melanin Margin for updates on new content.
And if you'd like to follow each of us, our handles are at Daquon MUE.
And at Andre Talks a Lot.
Now we will see you all next time on the Melanin Margin, where our goal is always to bring the marginalized to the spotlight in any way we can. Goodbye now.